I know everybody's excited to start the last session of today. My name's Nick Shockey, and I'm thrilled to moderate today's final session, where we'll discuss sustainable diamond open access infrastructure, advancing social justice. Yesterday, I was struck by the closing of Professor Tuhoai Smith's wonderful presentation, and I couldn't imagine a better way to start this year's summit. In particular, I've really continued to think about what she closed with and her final point about the narrowness of constraints oftentimes within universities, and about what is considered excellent or even what is considered knowledge, and whose interest that narrowness serves and whom it excludes. Our topic now of the sustainability of diamond open access, the way the idea of sustainability is framed can often also be incredibly narrow. I imagine many, if not most, of the people in the room today have seen the idea of sustainability used as a cudgel to attempt to marginalize and undermine non-commercial knowledge infrastructures, to suggest that without a business model that makes a profit, infrastructure that prioritizes community over commercialization is somehow less than or built on a weaker foundation. Even in this narrowest conception, I disagree. And we have examples here on this panel, for example, Latindex, of non-commercial knowledge infrastructure that has existed for more than a quarter century. I would encourage us in this session to take to heart Professor Tuhoai Smith's call to think more expansively today when we consider sustainability of knowledge infrastructure, to go beyond the simple question of funding and consider, for example, what is the relationship between specific knowledge infrastructure and the communities that each purports to serve? What is the dynamic between infrastructure and its community? What is the sustainability of that dynamic? When framed this way, I would suggest that the largest commercial knowledge infrastructure is also the most unsustainable. The cost to publish in APC-based journals alienates them from their communities. The pressure from some publishers to expand the volume of a journal's output distorts it and alienates it from its community. Conversely, I believe that community-owned infrastructure, and diamond open access specifically, is the most sustainable when viewed from the perspective of its relationship to academic institutions, to social justice, and to the public good. We have a fantastic panel here in this final session to explore this topic, and I'll briefly introduce each as they take the podium to present. So our first speaker will be Professor Madara Ogat, the CEO of the Ubuntu Net Alliance.
Good afternoon. Can you please clap for yourselves? I say that because you're starting a session at 5 p.m. and you all still look lively. Thank you so much. Yes, as my name was said, my name is Madara Ogat. I'm the CEO of Ubuntu Net Alliance from Kenya. So I also piggyback the University of Nairobi. Quick question. How many of you know what a National Research and Education Network, otherwise known as NREN, is? About half of you. So I'll just very quickly say what it is because it's core to the discussion. How many of you use EduRoam? More hands went up. Right? And a lot of you, when you walked in, EduRoam kicked in on your phone. EduRoam is run by NRENs. And it simply allows you, as you know, to be able to get internet access at member institutions like here at the University of Cape Town as well. But from the map you see there, that is the network of Ubuntu Net Alliance. That's a fiber optic network. It connects 16 NRENs in East and Southern Africa. Then these NRENs have their own national networks that connect the universities within the countries. Another way of saying that is between Ubuntu Net and the NRENs, we have a network of fiber that connects most universities in East and Southern Africa. And it does two main things. One, it connects the universities to themselves, so that if you're pushing high volumes of data between, for example, University of Nairobi and University of Cape Town, It runs fully on a private network. It doesn't go on commercial networks, and therefore you're able to do it more cost-effectively, more efficiently than you would if you're interfacing with commercial networks. And then more also in the African context, probably more than other places, or in the global south context, because we are bringing together or aggregating demand from institutions, it allows us to provide connectivity at a much lower cost than institutions could go and connect commercial internet by themselves. So all the logos that you see on the screen are the countries and the enrons that are there. We are co-funded for the last 13 years by the European Union and member enrons. So we get revenue from both sides. We're a membership organization, which means the enrons themselves own us. So where I am as the CEO, I'm still in the secretariat, but the actual Ubuntu Alliance is owned by the enrons. That's important because at the enron level, the universities are members of their enron. And in most cases, they own the enron. They're the shareholder. So if you go by extension, then UbuntuNet is also owned by the universities themselves. That will become important in the discussion that I'm about to have coming forward. The last couple of years, in the context now of open science, we set up servers in Lusaka and Kigali. And the goal is what we're calling our UbuntuNet Open Science Cloud, is to support our researchers and our institutions with the infrastructure side of open science. And because we are member-based, as I've explained, all the way from the universities upwards, we don't charge anything for the use of the services that we have, and I'll explain some of them to the institutions that are involved, because indirectly they have already paid for it and they are paying for it. They pay a little bit to the enron pays a little bit to us, and some of that we use for the infrastructure that I'm about to talk about. And because of this, between the European Union and the funding that we get from the enrons, which comes from the universities, this has been able to sustain, or will be able to sustain the infrastructure in the near term, even as we look for more longer-term strategies on how do you sustain the infrastructure. Now, I'm just going to give you two examples, because of time, of what we have running on this infrastructure at this point in time. The first one is Africa Archive. I'll talk a little bit about it more in detail. It's just a research output repository. We've been talking about this for open access. Documents, data, multimedia. This was set up, it's been there before, but in its current context at UbuntuNet was set up this year. It's up and running. And then from next year, we'll have a toe map. That'll be Diamond Open Access Books. I'll put that with a twist, because typically in open access, the author and the reader don't pay. But in this case, we pay the authors to have their books there. And that's where the twist comes in. And then Africa Archive will now also have an open access journal platform. So those who want to host Diamond Open Access journals won't have to worry about the infrastructure side, because we provide that to them at no cost. So let me jump to Africa Archive. Please take a note there, save the address now, so you can look at it later, because I'm just really just highlighting it. So just save the address. So we're looking at it as an Africa catch-all open access repository for data and documents of academic value. Please note I did not use research output, because there's a lot of items of academic value that one would argue are not necessarily research output. And I'm just going to take a 2-minute digression on this. My dad's a historian, and at 95 years old, he still does a little bit of work. Now, there was a famous Luo, a Maluo from around Lake Victoria in Kenya. There was a famous Luo chief. And the only image of this chief, this is the late 1800s, early 1900s, was a hand sketch. But we were sure that there are photographs of this chief, because many images were taken around this time by colonial visitors, postcards, etc. So the question was, how do you find which image is this chief who you only have a hand sketch? Now, the beautiful thing about open access is if you look early colonial images in Kenya, you can Google it, and you'll get very many sites that have images. And we literally found thousands of pictures of people who potentially could be this chief. You take these images, you take the sketch, you bring in AI, and you have AI match the images, scrolls through these thousands of pictures. And what has taken Kenya researchers decades not to find, we're able to find in a couple of months. That we found an image of the chief that matched the sketch, and then now with that image, we could find other images. Now, the actual image we found was a postcard. At that time, if you are from a European coming, touring wild Africa, you could buy a postcard, send home, here I am, and Africans are there. So one would argue a postcard is not research output, but it turns out it has had academic value. So that's what we mean by academic value, items which can help somebody doing research on something now and in the future be able to use that information. We also have specialized collections on the site. I hope you have taken note of it. And then the other thing that we do is many countries in our region, East and Southern Africa, still don't have NRENs. NRENs are able to support universities for repositories. Some NRENs don't want to do it. Some institutions are very small, so they can't justify the staff to run the to run the repositories. For those types of institutions, we provide them with all the infrastructure they need to set up institutional repositories, again, at no cost to promote open access. We also do capacity building. Here are some of the slides. One of our trainers, Joe, is right there as well. And these are in person for librarians, so that we walk them through the importance of having a repository as an institution. We walk them through exactly how they can do it. It's hands-on. They can then go back and do it at the institution, or we can help them set it up on our infrastructure as well. Again, the focus of what my talk today is on infrastructure. And then we run a webinar series that talks about the same throughout. A little bit on Africa Archive. Don't forget, save the address now. On Africa Archive, some of the costs in the previous presentation was fantastic, because you're seeing there's a cost to host, we provide that infrastructure. Cost for DOIs, we'll give you that as well. And so we try to remove as many of the infrastructure barriers on the continent for African researchers or institutions that would prevent them from setting up a repository. Because indirectly, all the other universities who are members through their NRENs are sort of covering some of these costs. And we're going to add now journal hosting as well, starting next year, again, based on OGS system. So if you have a Diamond Open Access journal and you're looking for the infrastructure to host it, we will provide you the infrastructure to host it. The other stuff is up to you, but in terms of the infrastructure, we'll be able to provide that for you to host it as well. Again, near term, as I said before, funds come from the EC, from our member NRENs. We now have funding through 2028 to support the growth of this infrastructure, both in Lusaka and Kigali, and to train librarians and to bring more of these repositories and data collections on site within the archive itself. Now, I want to switch gears. So that is one thing that we're doing. I want to switch to another problem. And I'm very happy with Professor Mary's presentation that we're here to solve problems. And again, this is another problem that we're trying to solve from the infrastructure side with a twist. So I've shifted now to the issue of the Diamond Open Access textbooks. What people don't realize is very many universities in Africa, their students don't have access to textbooks. When I talk about access to text, I mean purposely written textbooks for the classes that they're taking, as opposed to finding some information here, some information there. It's not curated, not sure whether they're reading is accurate or not. And that becomes their primary source of information outside the classroom. For those where there are textbooks, many students can't afford them, even if the textbooks do exist. And therefore, that further provides economic exclusion. Because now in the university, you have students who can afford the textbooks and students who can't afford the textbooks. And typically, the students who can afford the textbooks were the ones who came from the better schools because they could afford the better schools to begin with. And that marginalization continues to be increased. Where you do have required textbooks in the syllabi, the library will have some copies, but it's impossible for the library to have enough copies for all students that you have within a class. And a lot of times, those textbooks themselves are out of date. It's very common across universities on the continent. This is the cycle, therefore, that you have when it comes to publishing. You can begin anywhere in the cycle. But essentially, because the number of books being sold, locally authored, are very few, publishers are unwilling to publish university-level textbooks because a commercial publisher must make a return on that book. And part of that is the students who can afford, or if they can't, they will collectively come together, they'll buy one book and photocopy it for the rest of them so that everybody else can have a book. And then the authors, the few university authors who write books, very difficult for them to get royalties from the publishers because there's a certain threshold of how many books must be sold before royalties kick in. And that can take literally decades, if ever, to reach. But because we're academics, we write those books anyway, because the goal is not to make money out of it. But this is the reality. And so what we want to do is to turn that curve completely around. And again, I can't read here or read there, but I sort of know what's on it. So again, you can begin anywhere in the cycle. One is you move to an e-platform, and hence the issue of the Diamond Open Access books. Because in that way, students have the devices already. They may not have laptops, but they'll probably have a tablet, have a mobile phone. If it's an e-book, they can access, they can read the content. It's not expensive to publish an e-book as opposed to a physical book. And therefore, the publication costs are very low. But we also want to encourage local authorship of textbooks relevant to the courses that you as a faculty member are teaching. And you have it to an extent where it is also usable by your colleagues across the continent. And therefore, the twist we have is that, one, you will issue a call, authors will submit manuscripts, they'll be peer-reviewed to make sure that that content is accurate. They'll make corrections as necessary, they'll be professionally edited, converted to an e-book, and placed on the platform. And then we'll pay the authors up front. We're not buying the content. Content still belongs to the authors. We're simply paying them a licensing fee to allow the book to be freely available in perpetuity. If they do another edition, that's another book. But the current edition, here's the fee, we'll make it available, but it's still yours to do with as you see fit. And therefore, you change the cycle. The student can access it. They don't have to photocopy it. The author has an incentive to write, a little bit of money plus knowing that now they'll get that academic recognition for writing a book as well. The tome app, by the way, tome is an English word, so I won't tell you what it means, but I'm sure you're curious and you'll want to know what it means. It's already working. We've been working on it for the last 12 months, but it's under test. There are 2 books on it. Currently, we're simply testing it to make sure there are no issues with it. It will be available to download on Windows, Mac, Android, iOS. And it works like Kindle. I like saying Kindle-like app because everybody knows Kindle. So you go in, you find a library, you pick the book you want, or the lecturer has told you, download it. It syncs across your devices the way Kindle does. And it's yours for life. That account doesn't die even if you graduate. It's just like Kindle works as well. But it has digital rights management, so it's not like Kindle. You can't share books across and so on. The books are embedded in the app, but it doesn't matter because the app is free, so if somebody wants one, simply download your own app and download your own books. It's not restricted as well. The platform, like I said, is under testing. It's going to go live in January next year. Currently, the app has navigation in English, French, and Portuguese. And the books will also be in English, French, and Portuguese. Our goal is to, like I said, we're under testing. We have funds and member support to pay for the infrastructure, but also to publish 50 books minimum in the next 4 years. And the agreements we're going to have with authors is if you write your manuscript in English, we will pay for its translation into French and Portuguese. So I'm written in French, we'll pay for translation into English and Portuguese, etc. So that every book on the platform will always be available initially in at least those 3 languages at this point. So what has this done as I conclude? We have removed part of the barrier for some of these activities by saying collectively, remember I started with NRENs and universities. So essentially, because our money comes from NRENs to a large extent, which comes from universities, the same universities across our region are providing residual funds that pays for this infrastructure, which now allows them to go back and use for the benefit of their staff and their students. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Agat, for sharing the importance of NRENs with us, particularly in supporting open science, the infrastructure of open science, capacity building, and now Diamond Open Access textbooks that are locally relevant and translated. Next, we will hear from Professor Saray Cordoba Gonzalez, who is a retired professor from the University of Costa Rica and a distinguished figure in the field of education known for her transformative contributions to curriculum development and educational innovation. Professor Cordoba Gonzalez.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate to be here because there was very satisfying to all the process. And following, I apologize because I didn't translate the title. It is, why has Latin America a Diamond Open Access tradition? Y continuaré hablando español. América Latina tiene una formación bastante particular en cuanto a que es el continente o subcontinente más desigual del mundo. La concentración de la riqueza en pocas manos ha sido uno de sus problemas, pero a la par de eso tiene una gran riqueza natural y cultural que hace que la región tenga unas características muy particulares. La desigualdad se muestra con diferentes factores. La injusticia tributaria, por ejemplo, el poco acceso a la educación y la baja generación de conocimiento que hasta cierto tiempo se clasificó de esa manera o se describió de esa manera, pero luego con los años se ha demostrado que no tiene una baja producción, todo lo contrario. El desarrollo de la ciencia tiene características también muy particulares en cuanto a que podemos decir que la investigación juega un papel preponderante para desentrañar la solución a muchos problemas que afectan la región, problemas que algunos llaman locales y que la investigación ha venido ofreciendo soluciones con el tiempo. También es importante decir que Aquí algunos datos tengo sobre el Producto Interno Bruto de los países que conforman la región. Y podemos ver acá cómo no tenemos ninguna manchita oscura, como sí la tienen los países del norte, pero que tenemos países que tienen unos avances importantes. En un momento histórico, el comercio de las publicaciones, de las publicaciones se acentuó en un momento en el que estas fueron consideradas un buen negocio. Como nos dicen Oppenheim, Greenhalgh y Rowland, relacionado con el comercio, apareció en una forma bastante fuerte. La distinción entre la editorial comercial y la no lucrativa se volvió menos clara. Algunas editoriales universitarias publican libros de texto y otro material orientado hacia el consumo. Este es apoyado por ventas agresivas y técnicas de mercadeo. A pesar de esto, la editorial sin fines de lucro sigue disfrutando de un estatus de beneficencia y permanece inmune a las fusiones y adquisiciones que se han vuelto habituales en el sector comercial. Sin embargo, antes de que esta situación cambiara, en América Latina las bibliotecas adquirían sus publicaciones por medio del canje, como donación, del préstamo interbibliotecario y las fotocopias, sin pesar en los derechos de autor, puesto que eran abiertas para todo el mundo. Esto fue cambiando poco a poco. Sin embargo, nuestras bibliotecas se surtían de las publicaciones de una forma libre o casi libre, de manera que poco se les pagaba a los publicadores en ese tiempo, y podría recordar algunos nombres como Faxon, que nació en el siglo XIX, Dawson, Everett, pero principalmente las adquisiciones se relacionaban con este otro tipo de intercambio. Es importante también pensar que así como fueron aumentando los costos de las publicaciones fuera de la región, sin que se pudiera tener un control del mercado, porque no dependía de la región, sino que, como dicen Oppenheim, los mismos autores, el crecimiento de la investigación científica desde 1945 ha abierto nuevas oportunidades para los publicadores comerciales. Y esto fue lo que empezó a acentuar el costo, el aumento del costo de las publicaciones. Pero, contrario a lo que estos autores expresan, también tenemos la mirada de Rodríguez y Besuri, que nos dicen que cómo fue tomando fuerza la industria de la publicación científica a partir de ciertas premisas que involucraron a investigadores y bibliotecas hasta llegar a lo que es hoy el oligopolio dominado por 5 editoriales. En América Latina se desarrolló la idea de que las publicaciones de la región no son tan buenas. E incluso en otros espacios se consideraba que estas revistas no podían cambiar su endogamia a pesar del advenimiento de la publicación electrónica, y que en el fondo del problema la ciencia había venido jugando un papel secundario. Había poca visibilidad de la investigación, jugaba un papel secundario, eran publicaciones endogámicas, la producción científica era desconocida a nivel global, no había presencia en los índices internacionales y tampoco teníamos índices locales que pudieran dar visibilidad a lo que se producía. Aquí es donde entra a jugar un papel muy importante las universidades, que son elementos fundamentales que coadyuvan a asegurar la ciencia abierta, la información como bien público y el acceso al conocimiento. Aquí muestro algunos datos salidos de la TINDEX de cómo en los países de la región las universidades son las que, estos son datos actuales, las que juegan el papel más importante en la producción científica, comenzando por Argentina y México, y siguiendo por otros de los países que podemos identificar, Brasil, por supuesto, que llegan a un nivel mucho mayor en esa producción. Y tal como nos lo plantean Besuri, Guedón y Cheto, también porque la misión pública se mantiene fuerte entre las universidades latinoamericanas, la efectividad del acceso abierto para compartir el conocimiento se escuchó alto y claro. En ese sentido, la misión pública de la educación superior sufre de avatares según cada gobierno, cada vez que trata de disminuir el financiamiento a las universidades, pero no obstante, la población en general tiene claridad en cuanto a esa misión. Estos otros datos que nos provee Redalic nos muestra cómo la producción que proviene de las universidades es mayor de acuerdo con cada uno de los países. Aquí Ecuador, Colombia, Costa Rica son los países que van a la cabeza en cuanto a la producción que se da en las universidades y de acuerdo con la colección de Redalic, cómo esto va disminuyendo de acuerdo con los aportes de otras fuentes. En el año 2002, según el inventario que realizó la UNAM por medio de las bases de datos Claro, Clase y Periódica, existían 11,000 títulos de revistas que pertenecían a Iberoamérica y el Caribe. De ellas se seleccionaron 1,062 porque contaban con prácticas de calidad. Eso significó un 59.69% de ese conglomerado de títulos para dedicarlos a América Latina. Muchos de estos eran impresos o tenían ambos formatos. Y en esa época entonces es cuando se empieza a observar cómo era necesario buscar una solución a esa concentración, a esa poca visibilidad que teníamos en la región. Solo 4 países estaban presentes en el Institute of Scientific Information, hoy de la empresa Clarivate, o sea, la Web of Science. Con ese potencial se empezó a trabajar para formar los índices que hasta el momento nos han dado, o es uno de los factores que han influido para el acceso abierto diamante. En 1997, con la aparición de la TINDEX, cada socio en su país realizó el trabajo, esto fue cuando nació la TINDEX, la forma en que tenía su página, y cada país iba trabajando para almacenar la producción científica de manera que se fuera haciendo más visible. Y este es otro ejemplo de un paso importante que en el 2006 se da para formar portales de revistas. Este era de la Universidad de Costa Rica, que fue el primer portal que formamos con los criterios de la Tindex, y por eso se usaba el logo acá, porque nació con la colección que se generó desde el 2002. En esa época también es cuando empieza a generarse la buena intención para recoger esa producción de la universitaria y buscar forma de hacer visible la producción. De hecho, América Latina, según los datos que tenemos del Open Journal Systems, cuánto se usa, es la tercera región en el mundo en cantidad de revistas que usan ese software. Y son datos del 2024, de la semana antepasada. Aquí está el primer lugar, porque contiene las revistas del sudeste asiático, Indonesia principalmente, y el segundo lugar en Europa, tercer lugar América Latina. Esto hace que sea una característica importante que distingue a América Latina, de lo cual poco se habla. Es el multilingüismo, la cantidad de revistas que no son todas estas son un ejemplo de publicaciones en lenguas originarias. Los sistemas de acceso abierto en la región aparecen o empiezan a aparecer a partir de la discusión que se da en 1994, cuando se propone crear la Tindex. Y es hasta el 1997 que aparece. América Latina en este momento tiene además cerca de, 3.500 revistas de calidad que se distribuyen en diferentes índices regionales, más de 800 repositorios de acceso abierto y cerca de, o más de 650 portales de revistas. Estas, entonces, infraestructuras se fueron creando a partir de 1997, que aparece la Tindex, pero la Tindex se basa en dos sistemas que había creado la UNAM desde los años 80. Luego aparece Cielo, Redalic, Amélica, La Referencia, el portal centroamericano de revistas y LatinRev, por último. Entonces, todas estas infraestructuras vinieron a sostener y a dar fuerza a las revistas de acceso abierto, que empezaron a crecer y a llegar a lo que es hoy. Esta es la Tindex hoy, que tiene 3.000 y resto de 3.691 revistas en el catálogo, o sea, revistas de calidad. Y este es el catálogo. Y una buena cantidad de artículos que se integraron el año pasado. Y este es un ejemplo de una de las revistas costarricenses que contiene 3.000, no dice cuántos, pero son bastantes artículos, el texto completo de los artículos de las revistas del catálogo. Así ha ido evolucionando, de manera que lo que empezó en 1997 con 6 países, en este momento lo componen 24 países y varias regiones del mundo que publican revistas latinoamericanistas. Una clara ventaja de Latindex es esta modificación que se hizo y que nos parece importante señalarlo. Por su parte, Cielo, que aparece desde el 1997, que incluye a Sudáfrica, contiene en estos momentos también cerca de 1.654 títulos y es también parte de lo que incluye el texto completo, con 16 países, de los cuales 12 son de América Latina y el Caribe. Luego aparece Redalic, que actualmente tiene 1.742 revistas de 35 países, ya no solo de América Latina, pues se ha expandido bastante, y también aparece su hermana menor, Amélica, cerca de en su evolución. El Redalic es el único sistema declarado que declara expresamente que solo admite revistas de acceso abierto diamante, de manera que esa colección podemos tener seguridad de que está suficientemente curada en este sentido. Luego viene la referencia, que no contiene solo revistas, es un colector de repositorios de acceso abierto y que en estos momentos abarca 12 países, de los cuales 11 son de América Latina también. Una parte completa de estas infraestructuras son las declaraciones que se han generado en la región y que me parece importante puntualizar que han venido a apoyar también ese avance, esa trayectoria de acceso abierto diamante. La primera es la Declaración de Salvador, en Bahía, en 2005. Luego tenemos la Declaración de México, no me voy a detener a revisar qué contienen, ahí están los enlaces, pero son importantes en tanto que dieron empujes para ir fortaleciendo el acceso abierto de diamante. Luego la Declaración de Panamá, que se generó en el 2018 sobre ciencia abierta, la Declaración sobre acceso abierto no comercial en tiempos del COVID de Claxo, que por supuesto nació en 2020, y la Declaración de acceso abierto del SUCA, que es la más reciente, del 2023. Todas estas declaraciones se generaron en la región, como dije, y han venido a reforzar algunas conclusiones, algunos retos que nos quedan por delante, y aquí quiero puntualizar 3 que comparto con el profesor Alejandro Uribe y que nos propone seguir avanzando en institucionalidad, sostenibilidad, actuación y mejoramiento, lograr mayor participación y cobertura en la referencia para que se integren más países, avanzar más en la integración de los repositorios existentes. Y aquí yo agrego impulsar políticas nacionales, institucionales, para el acceso abierto diamante, para que sea una prioridad, no solo emitiendo declaraciones, sino convirtiendo esas políticas en leyes y que se hagan cumplir en la práctica. En segundo lugar, redoblar los esfuerzos para dar sostenibilidad a las revistas dentro de las universidades, de manera que se asignen recursos permanentes para la edición y distribución de las revistas. En tercer lugar, valorar la creación de un fondo de financiamiento regional para las revistas Diamante que cubra al menos unas 2,000 revistas para empezar y que vaya creciendo de forma paulatina hasta alcanzar los 3,700 títulos del catálogo Latindex. Esto es una idea que lanzo aquí. Y en cuarto lugar, brindar incentivos para las revistas Diamante de manera que se suspenda el crecimiento de revistas con APC, tal como ha sucedido en los últimos años. Hasta aquí mi intervención. Muchísimas gracias y luego preguntas.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your calling out the core challenge of, as publishing's become commercialized, losing the distinction between commercial and not-for-profit, and the importance of community-owned infrastructure and projects like Latindex and allied initiatives like Read a Leak in addressing that challenge. And next, we will hear from Kathleen Shearer, the Executive Director of CORE, the Confederation of Open Access Repositories.
Thank you very much, Nick, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me. I'm going to keep my remarks very brief because Nick knows that I can be very quick with my presentations when there's a glass of wine waiting at the end of the day. So we've been talking a lot today about the current situation, and I'd like to maybe move us a little bit into what's next, what would the future look like, how do we move forward from where we are now to where we want to be. And I'm going to draw on some of my experiences with the Global Repository Network, but my remarks will really be focusing on Diamond Open Access. So just so you know where I stand, I'm with Ariana. I really believe knowledge is a public good, and research outputs should really be freely available to everyone and not commercialized. We heard earlier about this open access Diamond journal study that was done in 2021, and it was incredible how many little journals there are out there in the wild. They estimated from 17,000 to 29,000, I think. Diamond open access journals. And these journals are a really important part of the scholarly ecosystem. We heard a lot today about how they are publishing local languages, local knowledge. They're really contributing to the bibliodiversity of scholarly communication. So they're very important, and they're not driven by profit. They're not driven by impact factor. They're driven by publishing about certain topics that are important to their editorial teams and to their communities. So I think what we really want to do and what we should be focusing on, in the coming year or so is to look at how we can strengthen the current Diamond open access ecosystem. So we don't want to lose any more journals to the commercial publishers, because that does happen. And we also want to increase the portion of Diamond open access journals in the ecosystem. But, as we've been talking about today, these journals are extremely vulnerable. There are a lot of challenges around technical capacity management, visibility, sustainability of platforms, and so on. So they really are ripe for either being picked up by commercial publishers or just disappearing. So for me, one obvious path forward in terms of sustainability of these journals is moving towards shared infrastructure. And shared infrastructure, we're already seeing it with initiatives like Read a Leak and other national and regional initiatives, but they bring about economies of scale. They increase the visibility of any individual journal. They act as a sort of a nexus for expertise around journal publishing. They support the adoption of good practices and can help ensure the quality of the journal. And so I think really the way we want to think about this shared infrastructure is funded by our governments, and they should be considering Diamond Open Access as important, critical digital research infrastructure, just like the NRENs, actually. So you probably saw the little Canadian flag beside my, my bio in the program, and I'd like to give you an example of what has been happening in Canada over the last few years to really coalesce around a shared infrastructure for Diamond Open Access. And many of you may know that Canada is actually, you know, a hotspot for open access. Open Journal Systems was developed by Public Knowledge Project in Canada and has been managed and maintained there for many years. And Juan Pablo's here, and Kevin Stronach's here, and several other people from the Public Knowledge Project, and they have done an incredible job. And we've seen how many OJS instances there are around the world. So thank you for that. And we also have a very strong library community and strong funders who are now working together to collectively develop funding models to be able to support critical Canadian journals. And we have Stephanie and Francis here, and our licensing consortium is contributing library funding towards this initiative. And so I think really the way we want to think about moving forward is bringing those key players together at the national level to the same table to be able to provide sustainable funding towards local journals. So our vision, our collective vision here is really about creating this very distributed ecosystem of sustainable Diamond Open Access publishing infrastructures and repositories, of course. And I think we need in some ways to also act together. We can't remain as this incredibly distributed ecosystem and really accelerate the adoption of Diamond OA. So we also need to think about what can we do, how can we act together to advance this system? What are the things we can do at the international level in terms of collaboration? And I'd also just like to take a moment to speak about the other types of infrastructure that are in the scholarly ecosystem and how important it is that the decisions we make about using those infrastructures don't exclude certain players. And I'd particularly like to talk about PIDs. Our Indian colleague, I don't know if she's still here, asked about whether everyone is using PIDs. Well, actually, there are a lot of people that are not able to use digital object identifiers or DOIs because they can't afford to pay for it. So we need to be very cautious that we don't start to present DOIs as a proxy for a legitimate research output, because we know that many countries, including India and other countries in Africa and Latin America, cannot afford to pay for DOIs. So what we're doing at CORE is we've launched a task force to look at how local DOI initiatives could be developed and nurtured and also become interoperable with the existing Crossref and DataCite infrastructure. So I also think it's important that we don't just look to see what are the needs or the requirements of the research publishing community now, and we should think about what is possible in the future. And I was pleased to see our Chinese colleague mention overlay journals, because this is something that CORE has been very strongly advancing in our own community. And we are calling this model Publish, Review, Curate. And this is a model whereby a preprint is deposited into a repository or preprint archive, and an external peer review service or overlay journal does a peer review and potentially validates or endorses that article. And I strongly believe that if we as a community collectively adopt this model, it will give us a huge competitive advantage against the current commercial publishers, because they have very entrenched workflows. They can't innovate the way we can. If we can work with our distributed community, we can really innovate. So just maybe a couple of comments about the benefits of this publish, review, curate model. And CORE hosted a workshop at the end of October with some early adopters of this model, shall I say, and I see a few friendly faces, 2 friendly faces at least in the crowd here. So, and we sort of had a strategic discussion about the benefits and what are our strategic opportunities to advance this model over the coming few years. But obviously, you know, if you're sharing a preprint, this is pretty rapid dissemination of research results. It's much more transparent in terms of the publishing process, including making reviews openly available. It scales horizontally and vertically because there's interoperable mechanisms that allow these different infrastructures to interact with each other. And it can be quite a low-cost way of publishing as well, and I think it would work very well in the African context. It's community-owned, like Diamond, open access, and we think because of its distributed nature, it's also can be quite resilient. So I'd like to give you an example of one of these publish, review, curate initiatives that I feel is very, very powerful and can show what the future might look like. And this is a next generation preprint from the Montreal Neurological Institute. They have launched a preprint server that they call NeuroLibre, and it was initially only for a specific domain of preprints, but now they're starting to collect all of them, and they call them living preprints, so they have all the code. It's not in a PDF format. They're in very different formats depending on what the researcher has created the document in. There's tables that you can go and find all of the research data linked to it and so on. And when I introduced them to this very unique peer review service called Peer Community In that does this open peer review, the light bulb really went off for them because essentially what was happening was that their researchers had to create a PDF text and submit their manuscript to a publisher. But what they can do now is keep their living, amazingly innovative preprint and request a review from the Peer Community in Neuroscience peer review service. So I think it's quite an exciting potential for the future. And by the way, it's already being implemented here in Africa. So the Baobab repository, which is hosted by Wakren, is now being integrated with the Kotahi, which is an overlay journal platform. And so there will soon be the possibility of having overlay journals and overlay peer reviews undertaken here for articles that are deposited into this particular repository. And you know who's next? Africa Archive. So we will be having discussions about linking up Africa Archive with this particular, into this particular ecosystem. So my bold prediction, if I come back in 5 years from now and we're having another Diamond OA meeting, I hope that at least 15% of the people in the audience are using the publish, review, curate model, because it really is a science-led publishing as opposed to publisher-led science. And before I finish, I have one more comment. I think, when we think about these infrastructures that we're developing and that I hope become more mature, even if they are traditional shared diamond open access infrastructures, we have so much in common with each other, with what we're doing, that we should really find ways to collaborate. I was talking, for example, with our colleague from Cuba yesterday. They have 270 journals, and they're having difficulties with the electrical grid and so on. So I foresee the Diamond Open Access community as also a community that can share and help each other out when there's a problem in one particular region or one particular country. So I think we have a very exciting future, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. And as we welcome our final speaker of the day, Dr. Arbain, who's the head of the Relwan Journal Indonesia, to the stage, I'd like to ask everybody to both give yourselves a very enthusiastic round of applause for staying engaged to the last speaker of the day, and as a way to welcome our final speaker in the very enviable position of wrapping up today's session.
Good afternoon, college. I hope you are all doing well. I really know this is the critical time for us. Okay. Ziegler said, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Today, in this special event, I would like to share the first about my organization, and the second one is about diamond access issue in Indonesia, and the last one, the future expecting about diamond open access journal. Last year, after I came from Toluca, Mexico, I met with some friend, and I thought about diamond open access. He thought that diamond open access is more expensive than gold open access. Oh, why? Literally, diamond is more expensive than gold. My friend said so. I don't know, in another country. My friend said, oh, it will be expensive if we join with the diamond open access. My friend said so. I don't know, in another country. Okay, I would like to start my presentation with RGI. RGI is a voluntary organization. We have 770 each member. This is our second job. That's not our main job. All of us are worker in university, in the government, and we try to help all of the journal. Not only in Indonesia, we already help journal from the Central Asia to manage the journal properly. And have you see the Bali in the maps? Yeah, Bali. Yeah, I hope you can visit Bali as soon as possible. Okay, this is the map based on the member our organization, and as the information, our new capital will be moved as soon as possible in the Borneo Island, not anymore in Jakarta. Okay, why? Since 2016, we try to help Journal Indonesia. As the previous presenter said that there are many journals in Indonesia. In our member organization, we have more than 17,000 journal. 17,000 journal. You know, since 2016, we have the forum to discuss what's happened with the OJS, what should be put the plugin, what should be to what is crack the OJS, because this one is the open access, right? We can create to be better, we can change the color, yeah. That's one the forum that we start with the forum. Until today, OJS 3, if you need to practice to use the OJS, we prepare it with the OJS 3 relawan journal.id. That's free. All of the services in RGI is free. Not only from Indonesia. If your university try to practice how to use OJS, we have the platform OJS 3. Just send email to us, and we try to prepare it. And the second one, and the next one is Panji. Panji is assisting for the international journal. Yesterday, our organization got some funding from the university in the Central Java. We assist their journal to be indexed in Scopus. And yeah, that's work. That's work. In Indonesia now, already 170 journal already indexed in Scopus. And the next one, we have the RGI Academy. This one is the platform from the beginning to the expert. You can study how to manage the journal. It's also free. And the next one, journal stories. Today, the website has the problem. This one also our platform. You can register and we put your journal. It's something like the indexation for the Indonesian journal. And the last one, LSP. LSP means the certified by the government. In this certified, not free, yeah, because the register one, you have to pay to the government, not to RGI. We also help the editor and the author to certified by the Indonesian government, and we try to help with the LSP this application. And the next one, as I said, the previous presenter also mentioned the OJS user in Indonesia. We have the big one. It's the opportunity, also it's the problem. Yeah, in our member we have 17,000, and we have the accredited journal based on our government criteria, and there are 3,000 publishers joining with us, and also we have our member to give the similarity with the authenticate user, because our government said in our promotion for the lectures, you have to use Turnitin, you have to use the authenticate or plug scan, that one. That's why all of the journal Indonesia use that product. And you can check based on the government accredited journal, right now there are 10,000 journal already accredited by the government. There are 6 level. The lowest one is in the 6th level based on the score. It will be score 30 to 100 based on the criteria. The highest one is if your journal already indexed in Scopus, it will stay in the first grade, level 1, something like that. Okay. I also want to say that Indonesia is one of the most indexed journal in DWJ. I filter this with the without fees. The real one is 2,400 journal already indexed in Scopus. In fact, that's only 10%. I think only 10% it means that we had problem also, yeah. Because there are so many journal and the index in the OAJ, when you look at this, it's quite bigger, and when we check again, oh, it's only 10% from the journal. And the another problem, starting journal, when we create a starting journal, some the university, company, or what is the another institution, he start with free first. After 2 years, the FEC will be raising. That's the problem. And the next one, this one, as I said, the accreditation level by our government. Last year, PKP team already meet with our government. They are talking many things about the Indonesian publication, and one of the conclusion is about the policy. Because in our country, if you are the lecturers, if you are the PhD student, if you are the master student or the bachelor student, you have to publish. That's why the high demand of the journal, yeah, happens. Yeah, I hope with this global summit, we can recommend something to our country. Okay, the next one, I know the existing global of infrastructure for diamond open access, this one, and you know, mostly Indonesian journal 99.9% open access. But yeah, they don't know about the diamond one. They know about gold open access, green open access, but this one is new. That's why our organization try to promote this idea about the diamond open access. And a case study in Indonesia, as the journal publisher in Indonesia, we have the university, different like the I talked to some friend from the university. Indonesia mostly journal managed by the faculty, managed by the department. Imagine that we have 4,000 university in Indonesia, and every single university minimally have 10 journal. Yeah, 40,000. Yeah, quite bigger. That's the problem also. Yeah, and the next one, the companies also can, in our country, if you want to get the EESSN, yeah, at the past time, it's easy. Just register and waiting only for 2 or 3 weeks, and the AESSN, electronic ESSN, will publish by our government. And the next one is foundation, and also the problem is with the commandatory phenotype or CV in our country called, yeah. As I said before, at the first time, the journal, yes, is free, no APC. After index in DOAJ, because of the high demand, the price, the APC changes. That's the problem. And after index in Scopus also, it's automatically the price minimally based on my own research. It costs $300 to $1,000 for a journal. In Indonesia, you can check. We have 170 journal already indexed in Scopus. That's why this is based on the mandatory publication policy for lectures, for students. I have a friend he start his study since 2018 until today. He's not finished his study because of the publication. That's the problem. Indonesia, if you want to finish your study, especially for the doctoral and master degree, you have to publish in Scopus. That's the problem. You know how much money we have to spend. And I will tell you also, sometimes, yeah, we thrive in fact journal and predatory. Yeah, 2 times sufficient. 2 times. You pay APC and you got the fact journal. You can check so many journal. I am as the editor, I can easily cloning your journal, make a new website, yeah, with the .com or .rg or okay, it can easily. That's the problem now. Indonesia, that's why RGI as the place to ask question about the journal. Sometimes we accompany the authors, oh, this one is fake, this one is fake. Pay attention, watch out, you'll pay, your money will be loose if you pay with this journal. So many friends send the WhatsApp about the journal. You'll get the LOA in 2 or 3 days and you have to pay this money. Oh, it's easy right now. Also the email, not only me, I believe all of you in this room also get the same email. Okay, this one, I say, one of my friend 2 times sufficient, 2 times suffers because he paid the APC and then this journal is the fake one. Belis is not enough. You know, Belis has list many fake or kick journal. However, it's not enough. There's no institution who care about this. Indonesia, if you trap in the fake journal, commonly they are going to be silent because you'll be ashamed if you share because you already trapped in the fake journal. I don't know. Someone also has trapped it for the fake journal. Okay, and the next one I will tell you about the institutional policy in our country. This one based on our own language. You can read the APC. The institution asks the money. In Indonesia, the government university also journal as the business. For example, in this case, 30% of the APC will be get by the university as the income. I don't know about this one. This one is the case. I just give you. I will not give you a full policy. It will be danger for me. I will not go back to Indonesia. Yeah, 30% of the APC contribution will be back to the university. That's the English. Yeah. This case is only based on one university. In another university, it will be cost higher and higher. And based on my point of view as the journal editor and assisting many universities to handling a journal, this one for the medium one, for the price. This one, $100 based on the dollars. Okay, I hope this one is the last slide because it's already 6:15. Okay. I would like to tell many things if you. We need to focus based on the case Indonesia. That's why I told you if we focus about the diamond open access, we have to focus which one, the journal or the publisher. Because if we choose the publisher, sometimes the publisher have more than 5 journal, and the new one will be free. The new one will be free. And this one is with the highest price, based on my experience. Not only Indonesia, Singapore also, I think. Yeah, some publisher. Oh, this one is free, and this one is the highest price. And yeah, I don't know which one we are going to focus. We are going to focus the journal or the publisher. Yeah. That's why I also recommend to make interesting to the diamond open access. If possible, why? We can give the special label. In the past time, when the journal have the green tick with the preservation, something like that. Yeah, because I'm one of the associate editor of DOAJ. This could be interested. Especially for the Indonesian journal. Oh, this one interested because we have a special place if we use the diamond open access. And this one also for the PKP team. That's why I will talk to PKP team. It's okay. The need for policy that diamond, we already translate the diamond open access book and already share to our Indonesian colleagues. And the next one, if possible, some of the one of the presenters said that the diamond access will control how many paper published in every single issue. If possible, we can make the system. Our government try to make also the system that can control every single issue that they publish in their journal. Okay, I think that's all for my presentation. I have some more slide, but I believe you are so tired, and waiting for the line, for at the end, we all have a responsibility to be part of the change in the world of publishing. Diamond Open Access Journal is not only the model, but a solution to achieve greater equity and wider access to knowledge. Out there, many researchers, lecturers, academic institutions, and librarians are eagerly waiting this positive shift. Let us all contribute to the development of the Diamond Open Access infrastructure, working together to create a more inclusive and just academic world. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Reggie, I know we are committed to Q&A here, but given the time, I'm wondering if perhaps we can have a gala dinner-based Q&A with our speakers. Yes. Perfect. One more big round of applause for our final speakers today.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for surviving the day of the conference. Reggie, I must have done something to you because you asked me to close the day and to give applause. Anyway, I would like to thank very much on behalf of the Overseeing Committee, the speakers, the moderators of this day today. We have heard all sorts of angles regarding social justice, from philosophers to economic analysis. I think we have received an excellent overview of the great diversity where we are immersed. I think this is one of the greatest values of this platform, to show and expose the diversity and what we can do to achieve the recognition that we believe is lacking. And now let's all go for the very fantastic gala dinner that the organizers have prepared for us. Thank you very much.